Hello, Soul Spiralers. Welcome back to season 2 of the Soul Spiral podcast. Wow. It's pretty amazing to reflect on this little pocket of the internet that I have been facilitating over the last year. And it felt like a really optimum time to kind of close out season 1 and all the conversations that have taken place, and perhaps my growth in holding space for those, and step into a new phase of the soul spiral. And there's a couple reasons why I decided that we're stepping into season 2, which I will definitely get into. But I just wanted to call in that energy of reflection, because we are 6 months through the year. It's a Sagittarius full moon where I am. And there's a real aspect of illumination that comes with that point. And also it's that thing of like, oh my gosh, it's already halfway through the year. What was I doing at the start of the year? What was I wanting at the start of the year? What was I calling in and bringing through? And what of that is landing? What of that is yet to land? And what of that isn't really in alignment for me anymore? And being okay to change that direction or that manifestation as we grow and as we change. So I started this podcast, I think, in May last year. And this time last year, I was fasting. I was doing my second long water fast with my lovely partner, Alex. And one of our main intentions, which I'm sure you guys know if you've listened to our pre and post fasting podcasts, which are some of my first, is that we were fasting to really get ourselves into a space of clarity and health so that we could conceive a life, a baby. And it's pretty exciting to tell you guys that that gift has landed into my womb. So I am currently 15 weeks pregnant. And I just think it's even more exciting because it is very highly likely that my baby will be a Sagittarius. I'm due in December. And so, yeah, I'm doing this on a Sagittarius full moon. So next time Sagittarius is in the new moon, the opposite end of the cycle, I may have a little human with me. So, that was one of my key intentions of this year as well, was creation and the creation of life with my love. But I've mentioned things in the most recent podcast that this year has been a little bit wild and unruly. And I think there's been a bit of a reckoning happening in many people's lives in really deep and hard ways, but also very powerful and exciting and loving ways, just like the true polarity of life. Hey. So where do I even begin? I want to talk to you more about the pregnancy piece and sort of what that means for me and the way that I'm going about things, because those who have been listening to me for a while know that I don't tend to do things by the mainstream way. But I wanted to call in these moments of reflection first. And if you have the capacity to now, if you're driving, maybe not, but if you are not driving, can you close down your eyes for a minute and just take 3 long, soft breaths in and out of your belly and your system. And I have some questions I'm going to ask you, and I just want you to see what lands in relationship to these. What is something that has been illuminated in your life in the last 6 months? Something maybe that has been brought to the surface to be dealt with or worked through. What is something you have let go of in the last 6 months? What is something you need to let go of in this moment to move forward? What moments in the last 6 months are you most proud of? And how can you enliven your body to let passion, truth, and empowerment be the guide for your next 6 months? And I mean, you can come back to these questions. I might put them in the show notes for you if you want to have a proper journal on them. But sometimes just having that moment of sitting with yourself and asking yourself some questions is something we don't always do unless we're like, I don't know, like if you're in a regular practice and you take that morning practice and you do it there. But what about through different other pockets of your day? Do you take moments to reflect or just take pause in amongst the busyness? Because I know I can definitely get caught into like the doing and the busy, ticking all these things off. And that's wonderful. And it's good because I have my morning practice and my evening practice. But what about just through the day, just bringing more of that through? It only takes 3 breaths maybe to just stop and be with yourself. And maybe just ask yourself a question of like, what feels most alive to me at the moment? Because that regular check-in with your body and with yourself is so important for us to be living in alignment with what's true for us and what's most empowering for us and what is guiding us in sense of passion, because we all want to be living in a space of feeling passionate about our lives rather than apathetic. And I'm going to answer the questions for you live, but it really, yeah, it's interesting because my dad obviously passed away at the end of February. And there's a whole story to go with that, which I wasn't sure I was going to share, but I maybe will share the highlights of that. But in the aftermath of that and falling pregnant after that, I really went into this space of fatigue, but I actually think I was in a real space of grief and apathy because of the big shift in my life in both ways. And feeling that real tiredness and apathy is hard. Like it doesn't, like for me, it didn't feel like depression has felt in the past, but it felt low compared to where I'm feeling now. And we have to go through those things. You know, I spoke about it with Rachel and in my podcast with her a few episodes back of like, we need to go into the void. And it's only when we surrender to the void that we can step into the rebirth and step into the aliveness. But I also believe that this regular check-in with what feels alive to us and what feels most true for us is a key aspect of that, because we tend to allow ourselves to get distracted by other things, whether that's our to-do list, whether that's other people, or whether that's technology or whatever it is, whatever your vice is. When we are so wrapped up in those things in our life, things come crashing down when it's been too long since those check-ins. So how can we bring more of that in? That's definitely something that I'm committing to and integrating and embodying, is these regular check-ins with myself throughout the day. But what has been illuminated in my life in the last 6 months? I I believe what's been illuminated in my life is actually how much abundance there is in my life and how blessed I am and feel I am in the way of deep love that I have in my life, deep reverence for the people in my life and them having deep reverence for me and respect, and the abundance of all the human things, let's say, because I'm about to land, well, Alex and I are about to land in our new property, which we've been manifesting for a while. So that in itself feels really exciting and abundant to me. But probably my deepest learning that's been illuminated over the last 6 months has been this real sense of knowing that my body is my body and it's my choice what I do with it. It's my choice how I navigate it. It's my choice who touches me. It's my choice how I take on other people's opinions and advice. Because I tell you what, getting pregnant, people have a lot of opinions and advice for you. That's for sure. I'm sure anyone that's been pregnant out there can relate to that. So there's been this real deep integration of other people's opinions are opinions, and I can listen and be like, yep, that's great. I can take this for me or that not for me. But at the end of the day, my body, the sacredness of my body, and I'm not just calling it a meat suit like we do sometimes in this in this spiritual sort of space. It's like, no, this is my physical incarnation of me in this life. And so the more I treat this body with respect and love and empowerment, the more that the aspects of my physical that I am experiencing or integrating in this life can be taken into other avenues or other lives in the future. So yeah, it's just been this really big I feel like it's something I've been working on for years, but it's like it's just recently just integrated through a few different things. So that's been really fucking powerful. Like, yes, this is my body. And I hope you can have that reminder too, that no matter what I say, no matter what anyone else says, like we're all speaking from our own opinions and experiences and our own upbringings and triggers. Anytime someone offers you support or advice, it's generally coming from that place. And it's not that usually they're not coming from a place of like ill, but perhaps their experiences are not the same as yours. So they're never going to know what's the exact right thing for you. Only you know what the exact right thing is for you. And only I know what the exact right thing is for me. And only Alex and I know what the exact right thing is for our relationship and our future child. Like that's only our choice. And it's really, I feel very strong in that, because when I first got pregnant, I was definitely in this apathetic state and perhaps maybe afraid to say what was right for me or speak up in that space. Something I've let go of, the opinions of others. And what I'm keep moving through letting go of is perhaps, another thing that I've let go of is this overwhelm. Seems to be a really common theme for myself at the start of this year, but also a lot of people and clients. And I just loved it. I don't know where I heard it. It wasn't from me originally, but it's like overwhelm comes from the space of when we're thinking of step 32 rather than just the next step. So I'm such like an overthinker and big planner, and I can like think things out and plan things out so capably in my head. But it's not always necessarily the healthiest thing when I'm not allowing it just to land. There's obviously a time and place for that sort of thinking. So something that I like writing lists, but then just being like, okay, what's just the one next thing that I need to focus on at any given time? And I think that's really helped me, and probably Alex too, navigate the experience that we're moving through, because there's a lot of moving parts in our lives at the moment and a lot of things that we need to do per se, and trusting that those things will land in the right timing, but also just focusing on one thing at a time is much easier and much more carefree than thinking of the 20 other things that I have to do, because there's always going to be 20 other things, and sometimes they'll feel more urgent than others, but they're always going to be there. So let's just focus on the one thing right now and be more present and experience this beautiful day that's here as well, rather than overthinking all of the stuff that needs to land. I'm actually the most proud of my podcast right now, guys. So I hope that you're enjoying it, because I feel like I've really put a lot of effort in, especially in the last few months. It's been like my little anchor or saving grace throughout this experience of early pregnancy, where you're not telling many people besides your friends and family, and navigating this post-death experience. It's really actually been something that's given aliveness for me. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you get a lot out of it, as I'm getting a lot out of it, even just having the conversations. And the ways that I am bringing aliveness and enlivening my being is pretty much what we've already spoken about. It's like, how am I showing up for myself? How am I checking in with myself? How am I being true to what's right for me? So moving forward of what this podcast is going to be in this season, one of the reasons I decided season 2 was arriving is because of my pregnancy, and I wanted to make this season a little bit more fluid, in the sense of it's still going to be the same sorts of conversations, because that's what makes me so excited, but there's going to be more of a weaving of conscious conception and conscious pregnancy, wild pregnancy, free birthing. So these are some of the decisions that Alex and I have made in the way that we're approaching our pregnancy. And yeah, one of the questions I get asked the most is, are you going to find out if you're having a boy or a girl? And no, we're not, though we both have been connecting to the spirit baby of our child for a while now, and we think we know what gender they would be choosing, but who really knows? When we found out, maybe I'll tell you the experience of that. But yes, let me backtrack a minute and tell you some of the other things that's been happening that I said I was going to share the story. So at the start, this year was just like, I was calling in so much learning and creation, and just that real essence of like transformation. I could really feel that coming. In February, on the 22nd of the 2nd, 2022, Alex asked me to marry him, which is very exciting. We've been together for 9 years in June, just been. So yes, he proposed to me, which was beautiful. I kind of knew he was going to do it because he was just so excited, and we've been talking about it for a while. And he flew my family and friends from all over to come and celebrate with me in the afternoon. So I was like very shocked over that. I was less shocked over the engagement and more shocked over everyone being at my house when I got back. And my dad was supposed to be there, but he was not feeling very well that week. And he ended up in hospital. But we still didn't feel very stressed about it. So my mum and my sister still decided to come because he was in the hospital, and you can't visit in the hospitals in Victoria at the moment, or at that point in time. So yes, they were up here. My sister went home that night. She was back with him the next day, picked him up from the hospital, and he passed that night. of a heart attack. And my mum was up here with me. My sister was at her boyfriend's house at the time. So it was a little bit chaotic for the way that we found out and the kind of things that we had to go through. So we kind of like quickly flew down to Melbourne, organized lots of things that was there. It was very shocking for our family and our friends. It definitely wasn't expected, even though he had gone into hospital. So yeah, it just really makes me like hold your loved ones close and tell them you love them. And I'm feeling so grateful that I went down to Melbourne in January, because I hadn't seen my dad since almost this time last year because of all the lockdowns. And the last time I'd seen him before that was when my grandma had died. So there's been a bit of death happening in our family. But one of my old bosses, Victoria, she told me that anyone with a Scorpio moon within the year that they die, either like the year before or year after, someone new will be born into the family. So she predicted that I would get pregnancy, but I was like, yeah, I think everyone kind of knows that though, because I'd been calling that in. And Alex and I conceived in the next cycle after my dad passed away, which is kind of a little bit wild and very like, it felt very much like the universe was giving us divine timing, because it just all felt like everything's happening at once. And during that cycle as well, we also settled on the property that we're moving into this week. So it's been lots of big things happening. That's probably the biggest. And I've been researching pregnancy for a while, guys. Like I've been doing this conscious conception thing. Alex and I've spoken about it before for the last couple of years, and probably like even the conscious conception thing's been the last 2 years, but then like just getting my body into a state of like health has been my focus over the last 5 years, for especially when I have children, because I didn't want to pass some of these health issues that I had on to my children when I could maybe heal them first. So yeah, it's kind of all landed very quickly, it feels like. But also in hindsight, if I reflect on how long we've kind of been on that journey, energetically, it's been a while. Yeah, and so through that experience and through what I know, through what I've learned, through what I've researched, through who I connect with, I have come to realize in my own being, and obviously everybody has their own choices and their own experiences, but I know I want to share my perspective because it perhaps will resonate with some people that need to hear that and need to hear a difference. So I don't believe that birth is a medical event, because at the end of the day, I could go into the woods and have a baby if I wanted to, and I wouldn't. Some people need it, but I don't technically need to have medical intervention to conceive if my body's in the right space and energetically I'm calling that in. I don't medically need support through my pregnancy unless I really feel like something is wrong and I want to do that. And I don't technically need that at birth either. Like I could do all of those things without the medical system. I am grateful that we have a medical system for emergencies, or for some people who are in a situation where they can't conceive, or maybe there is something going wrong, or there's something high risk in their family, or whatever it is. Not thrashing the medical system in any way, but just want to point out the fact that birth is not a medical event. It's a natural event that sometimes needs medical help or intervention or whatever. I think there's maybe too much intervention from more and more things that I learn. Jane Hardwick Collins is amazing in some of this stuff. I'm going to, definitely tell you to look into her work if this aligns with you, because yeah, it's not technically a medical event. It feels like it's been made at a medical event because there's like certain things you're meant to do at certain weeks with scans and tests and all this sort of stuff, but they're not always completely accurate anyway, and perhaps sometimes create more anxiety and stress, which from what we know about the mind, and we create our own reality from our own perceptions, do things go wrong because of that? Who knows? I don't know. Just putting it out there. So Alex and Maya's choice is that we are not having any medical assistance through this pregnancy and birth. Now, that being said, that would mean that we are home birthing, and it means that we are going to be planning to free birth. Now, when I say there's no medical assistance, I'm not saying there's no one going to be around us helping. I have a doula. I'm actually looking for a second support in some way, in like a doula. And the more I speak to women that have free births or been in this situation, they have ecstatic, empowering, powerful birth experiences. And even the choice not to have like a registered midwife at home with us is one I'm okay with, because if there was something that went really horribly wrong, a midwife will generally call an ambulance. So we are going to just get ambulance cover for our worst case scenario. And if I feel like there's something truly wrong, because I'm checking in with my body regularly and listening to what it tells me, then I maybe will change my tune. But at this stage, that's what feels most alive and true for me. And I feel very supported in that space from my community, from my doula, who's going to come on the podcast. Don't worry, guys, you'll get to meet her. And she free birthed her son last year. And just other people I speak to that are in that space. I feel very true and passionate and in integrity by making that choice for me. And it was something I was scared to present publicly. So thank you for witnessing this experience with your ears. And perhaps I can do another episode if you guys have more questions along the way, because I know a lot of you are like either, oh my God, what the hell? Or some of you are like, okay, I want to do that too. Tell me what you're doing, Kristin. So yeah, whatever you want to learn. Happy for you to send me questions. Find me on Instagram. Happy to chat. I'm feeling very, true and empowered in my decision. And in Alex is very solidified in that too. So yeah, that's kind of, I'll leave that at that for now. It's funny, like in my first trimester, like, so people want to know, have you had morning sickness? Have you had like aversions and cravings? What are you eating? Because everyone knows I generally eat quite a raw, clean diet. What books are you reading? All those sorts of things. So first trimester, didn't want to look at anything baby related. Didn't want to read any baby or pregnancy books. To be fair, like I've read a lot over the last few years. But once I was pregnant, I was like, get it all away from me. I don't want to look at anything. I don't know what the aversion to that stuff was. That's kind of shifting a bit. I'm feeling there are some books that I'm coming back to reading or excited to read. But I think what I needed in that moment, rather than reading pregnancy or birth books, was actually reading books that made me feel empowered as a woman. And those, I didn't want to just jump straight into like other people's opinions before I felt empowered. And so I was actually reading some stuff like Reveal or the Sophia Code, which is more of that Christ consciousness stuff that I talked about with Isabella, but also it just felt more empowering. And now that I feel like I'm in a good space with my empowerment, I'm actually quite open to reading more stuff again. Heaps of people have been sending me podcasts and different things. I haven't listened to many podcasts besides when I first got pregnant. I think it's called The Birth Realm, which they talk about free birth stories. So that's really cool. And So the couple books that I have got in my pipeline are 10 Moons by Jane Hardwicke Collins. I'm about a third to halfway through that. I'm just reading that bit by bit. I read The Birth Space last year, which I've talked about on here before. Alex is reading that at the moment. Sacred Birthing is another one that I haven't read yet. Alex seems quite a pill by it, so I think he was probably going to read it before me. Reclaiming Childbirth as a Rite of Passage is the next on my agenda. And Spiritual Midwifery is always kind of sitting there. Been reading bits and pieces of that over the last few years. And there's one other one that I was going to order, The Secret Life of the Unborn Child, which is funny because I tried to find that online for ages and I couldn't. And then it just popped up in my Amazon suggested yesterday. So that's definitely on the agenda. How have I been feeling? So I haven't had what I would call morning sickness. I obviously had a lot of fatigue. I did have food aversions and cravings. And prior to getting pregnant, probably from the start of this year, I've been eating cooked food since like when was it? Yeah, maybe November last year. And mainly that's potatoes or like veggies. Haven't really eaten grains or anything like that. But at the start of this year, I was probably being just a little bit more flexible, just not putting pressure on myself with some of that stuff. I'm still eating whole food, plant-based. But during my pregnancy, I have eaten some things that I haven't eaten in a very long time. One being toast, buckwheat toast, funnily enough. It's actually like probably all ingredients that I would eat. And pizza, I ate like once or twice. And just like enjoying beautiful vegan food. But yeah, I can definitely feel what feels right for me when I eat it and not. The main thing I was struggling with eating in my first trimester was lettuce, which is such a staple of my diet, that I found that quite challenging. And I was also finding it very challenging that I didn't have the energy to work out as much as I do, because I usually, before pregnant, I was working out a lot. Well, my version of working out, I was going bouldering, going to Pilates, like doing gym workouts, kind of that sort of thing, going running. And that kind of all went out the window, especially post grief, post getting pregnant. So I have more energy again since my first trimester is finished. I'm back on the lettuce, though it is winter. So I'm generally having a soup for dinner, having some sort of salad or like sandwich in the afternoon, and having fruit pretty much all through the morning day. Juices, smoothies, tea. I'm also been like carrying a hot water bottle with me on my kidneys to keep my hips nice and warm. And my bump is starting to poke out a little bit, especially in the evenings. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that. So yeah, I've had a couple of days of feeling weird. Like I felt a bit weird some days if I hadn't slept enough or I hadn't eaten enough. And I had vertigo for 2 days around Easter, which was after being on a plane. I don't know if that's what triggered it. And I had like nausea one day actually last week, but I'd kind of pushed my mealtime a little bit too far and I hadn't really eaten that much in the previous meal. So I think I was just like tired and hungry. So yeah, I'd like to think that all of the pre-work I did with fasting has made my experience of like not needing to purge during my early pregnancy, but who really flipping knows, because people have all different experiences, and maybe by my second child I'll be able to give you more clarity. But at the end of the day, my experience is my experience, someone else's is someone else's. It can be different no matter what. Who really knows? So much different things come into it, even with our DNA. So yeah, that's pretty much a kind of an update of what's happening over in Kristin land, Soul Spiral land maybe. But I have something I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you guys, what do you want to hear and what do you want to know through the pregnancy and through the podcast? And I want to encourage you to send your most recent favorite episode to a friend, share it around for me. I would be so appreciative to have that. And subscribe if you haven't already, and give a rating if you haven't already, and a review. So you can do that. I think it's a rating on Spotify and a review on iTunes are the options. And if you are happy to subscribe and share a review or a rating, email me at kristinbliss@gmail.com and tell me that you have, and tell me what has been your favorite thing recently and what you want to hear more of. And if you do that, then I will send you my juice fasting ebook for free, my guide, because I can't fast at the moment. If that's something that's aligning for you, that you want to call in more of that fresh, clear energy and calling in that beautiful physiology that comes with detoxifying and looking after your body, I would love for you to do that, and me be able to give that to you as a thank you for tuning in and for being such beautiful supporters, because I do get a lot of feedback from you guys and I appreciate it so much. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at for today. Got a little quickie, but hopefully my rambling hasn't been too crazy. I was thinking we could pull just a little oracle card. I mean, I don't think the size of it matters, but just an oracle card to finish out this episode. And yeah, I'm so excited to be on this journey and to be sharing this journey. And the card that I have pulled is contemplation. Sounds so perfect. It's that true reflection, isn't it, guys? Like reflecting on our life, where we've come, where we've been. It says, enjoy your own company. This is a wonderful time for you to reorganize and consider the things you enjoy most in your life. Make a point of spending a little time allowing your mind to wander away from the every concerns that occupy your time. Give yourself an opportunity to be inspired. Ruminate on your inner voice and listen to your own counsel. Well, there's like a good summation of what I was reflecting at the beginning of the episode. So yes, thank you so much for listening, guys. Next episode is going to be with Amber Harkin from the Cosmic Playground, and we are talking all things astrology. So stay tuned for that in a couple weeks, and I'm sending you all my love. Have the most beautiful day.